Hello and welcome to Indie Insider. This is my weirdly named podcast thing. My name is Buddy. I am the head of marketing for Akupara Games, and this is our show where I am joined by folks who have been working at Akupara because I want to give a spotlight to the people who are working inside of the industry and what they are doing in order to make indie games as magical and experimental and unique that we all know them to be. Today, I am joined by my fabulous guest, Alyssa. And Alyssa, I guess you have a bit of news to share with folks that is the whole subject of this podcast.
Sure. My name is Alyssa. I'm the COO of Akupara Games. I started at Akupara as just a regular old producer way back in the day, and that was 2019, 2020? I don't quite remember.
It's hard to think about that time, to be honest.
And Buddy was a wee old community manager.
Yeah, I was a wee babe, as they would say. So I'm really interested in kind of your journey getting into just like games in general. Like, what were the first kinds of games that you played that you feel like really mattered to you?
So I am a gamer of a certain age, as are you. So I turn 40 next year, so let that color your perception here. But my father actually worked in tech, and so I grew up around technology and computers and games, I would say earlier and in a more positive view than most people of my age. So I grew up playing games with my father before I could walk, practically. So some of my earliest games were like old point-and-click DOS titles like Return to Zork and Myst were some of the earliest games that really resonated with me. And then I would say in the early days, a lot of like old school platformers, especially ones made by Rare, like Rare and old DOS games were my childhood with Banjo-Kazooie, and then stuff like Gex, Aero the Acrobat, not all Rare games, but that's kind of like the first games that really just spoke to me, and then I still play, and now I get to play with my children and make them love it as well.
That's actually amazing. A Gex mention is real in the year of our Lord 2025, because Limited Run is bringing them back.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that one. I was stoked. And now Busby.
Yeah, Bubsy 3D is getting a new, listen, we're weirdly eating good, I guess I would say. Okay. How did your career in games get started? Like, how did you transfer sort of a childhood love of games into something that would then become a career that you are now submerged in?
Because I joined in almost right out of high school, and I was always creative. I always did a lot of art. I actually went to school for costume design, not for games, at CalArts, but I didn't realize that games could really be a career, though obviously there's people out there making games, so somebody had that as a career, right? But I grew up in the Rocky Horror Picture Show Shadowcast. That was like my first introduction to weird people in San Diego. And two of the people who I was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show cast with happened to work as QA at Sony down in San Diego. And I went, wow, I did not realize that was a thing that I could do. And then I moved up to LA and I was looking for work. I think I was 19, maybe 20 at the time. And so I said, well, let me investigate that QA thing and see if there's anything to it. Reached out to THQ, ended up getting a role there in QA when that was still something that was kind of easier to do with no experience and just a love and passion of the games. And from QA, I managed to kind of convert that into a production and marketing.
Deep love of Rocky Horror, I feel like, is incredibly on brand, and yet this is the first time I've ever heard about it. Were you performing?
Yeah, I was a performer.
Okay. What was your favorite song? Did you have one?
I feel like Time Warp's kind of a classic just because it involves everybody.
That's the one that I always think of too, because and it's fun to belt it. You just sing as loud as you possibly can. Those are the best songs. Okay. Okay. So you're in QA at THQ in Los Angeles. That seems like a long way from a producer at Akupara. And because I know the timeline of your life a little bit, I know that there were a couple of steps sort of in between. How did you go from that sort of entry point into 2019, we're working on canceled projects at Akupara together?
I was a contractor in QA. It was project based, right? You didn't get a permanent role when you were in that space, especially not at AAA and not at a publisher. We weren't even really able to talk to the developers much on the games at the time. So I did QA at THQ. It was contract based. And I went over to Insomniac to another contract-based role working on Resistance. From there, I actually took a detour out of games for a bit because it was brutal work being in QA. It was a lot of overtime hours, and it kind of killed my love of games for a little bit because it sucked all the joy out of it. It was hard work for many, many, many hours. So I went to massage for a bit, decided, no, actually games is really where I want to be. Came back and found a role at a company called White Moon Dreams, where I started again in QA, but they were kind of fast and loose with production and nobody was really handling it. We had a Kickstarter game that we worked on called War Machine Tactics, which you're a Warhammer player, so you know War Machine, I'm sure. And no one was really driving it. It had already launched, but we hadn't fulfilled all the Kickstarter rewards. There was another prettier, sexier project that people were working on. And I went, hey, I'm the producer on this project now. And they said, okay. So I kind of bullied my way into a producer role just because nobody was doing it. And we had this project that nobody wanted to touch. And I was very lucky that I had mentors there who supported me through my producer journey. And that I got the opportunity. I worked there for 4.5 years and then left to have a baby and came back to the industry and met up with David, who was at a job fair thing in a weird high-rise building in downtown somewhere back when we were still doing job fairs. And I went just to kind of help a friend who was looking for jobs. I did not go into it with any intention. Had never heard of Akupara. I wasn't super in the know when it came to indie, although White Moon was like in between indie. They were more like AA. And I had a really good conversation with David, and we kept in touch. We just liked talking to each other, but I didn't take a role just then. And later on, I had submitted to like the contractor intake form or whatever. Reached out to David later, kept in touch, and he offered me a role to come be a producer over at Akupara, working with you when we were a much smaller team. And Relic Hunters was the first project that I worked on, Relic Hunters 0 over at Akupara. It was just kind of a lot of lucky being in the right place in the right time and meeting people who I vibed with and the timing working out, I guess.
And going for what you wanted, right? Sort of bullying the company into being the producer is real. I want to take just a second, because this is the most, I don't think there's any word I would consider to be a part of the game dev lexicon that is worse defined than producer. If I talk to anybody in game dev and I say producer, everybody conjures sort of a different sort of meaning for that. So when you think of the word producer, what does producer mean for you and for Akupara in your career?
Personally, I think of producers as being just people who help other people succeed in their roles, whatever form that may take at the company. It's very much a support role for me. You and I have talked about this before, where you are very much a tank class, and I consider producer the healer class, where we're really just there to support people and make sure that the work gets done and that people have what they need and that we remove blockers. That can take a lot of different forms: project management, product management, scrum master, just tracking deadlines and deliverables, external tracking, vendor tracking. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of encompassed by producer. Some people have more like direct creative roles. Producer at Akupara means we do a little bit of everything all of the time. It's very administrative. So we just keep things moving and make sure that we actually launch games and don't noodle on them forever.
Unlike the Silksong team who gets to noodle for 7 years and then release 2 weeks later. Good for them. Okay, I'm so jealous. Okay. Yeah, very topical at the time of recording this podcast. What do you feel is your favorite thing about working at Akupara, right? So we're in, I guess at that point, 2019, 2020, whatever it was, when we're sort of launching, but I guess we could extend it now. This is just like, you are now at Akupara. What is the thing that has, I don't know, kept you excited about working here?
Point, I was in Akupara back in 2019 and then left briefly to go work at another company on Aliens, which was not because of a lack of love for Akupara or the people. And I came back to Akupara. I'm not the only person who has left Akupara briefly and then come back. I think that says a lot about kind of what's special about Akupara, is that we really have just raw talent and passion and good people who want to work on fun, quirky, weird little games and make art together and have fun. So the projects that we work on are just like weird and interesting and may not ever get the opportunity for people to play them if it wasn't a publisher coming and kind of amplifying, being a force amplifier on these really interesting, weird little games. And the fact that our team is small and agile and flexible means that you have direct impact on the games in a way that you just don't have in AAA. AAA, I've been on projects where they've swapped core leadership 3 times over 2 years, right? And it's hard to have any sort of meaningful impact when everyone can just be swapped in and out kind of so regularly. That's not the case at an indie company like Akupara. The projects and the things that we do are very much only the way that they are because of the specific people who work on them.
Okay. It sounds as though there's definitely a different level of sort of voice when it comes to projects at Akupara compared to what happens in corporate game design, shall we say. Corporate game development. Can you tell me about a time when you were able to kind of like put your voice in a project and be heard and change the project materially because of that influence?
Question. One of the projects that I've had at Akupara that I felt like I had the most personal input on was actually one of my earlier projects, and which is very much, this game was only made by the people who made it and would never have been made by anyone else, which was Spinch, which came from Jesse, who was a weird Canadian comic artist, and James Kirkpatrick, who is a weird chiptunes Canadian rapper visual artist. And it's like 2 guys came together to make a game. They had very different artistic backgrounds and very unique styles that meshed very nicely together, and it was very much my kind of game. It was psychedelic as a platform. It was just weird and funny and silly. And we got to do so much fun marketing stuff around that was very specific to the game, right? We got to showcase their music and save and sound. We got to do really fun, quirky kind of music videos. We made custom shoes. We had a speed running contest. And it was just, we drove so much of that and got to amplify the creativity that was existing in the team and add our own spin to it and find interesting ways to reach a specific core audience, because the stuff we work on is very niche, right? You need to understand who the audience is for the project and how to reach them and what they'll kind of engage with, both on the game level and the marketing side of things that happens outside of the game.
Okay. That's a great answer. I'm thinking about, it's now 2025. So you've been at Akupara since 2019, but there was also, whatever, let's call it layover with Aliens Fire Team Elite. Now you are back at the company. You work for, you work as part of the management team for a time, and you've become the COO, right? The Chief Operations Officer is what the actual sort of title comes down to. For all of the laymen out there, myself included, why was COO the correct next step for where Akupara Games is headed?
We are entering our 9th year at Akupara. So next year is going to be 10 years of existence, and Akupara has gone through kind of an interesting trend from inception to where we are now, starting as like a developer, doing a lot of work for hire projects and co-development projects alongside publishing, and then really just finding that was our core strength and focusing up. But Akupara doesn't take any outside money. We don't have any board of investors. We don't have any venture capitalists. We have built everything kind of off of our own labor and grown very slowly and sustainably. But now we're at a point where people know who we are. We've got some brand recognition. People want to work with us explicitly. They like the games in our portfolio. We have stronger and stronger games. We're launching 3rd games with partners, right? We've had long established relationships with our developers, and we're very integrated teams. So we've grown both our infrastructure and kind of our capability and our team and our skills and our knowledge and our finances very slowly and sustainably. But now we have reached the point where we're actually able to grow into kind of that mid-level indie space and hold our own kind of against the greater marketplace. Obviously, the industry in general has had a lot of trouble, and publishing in particular has been an interesting space to navigate. And I think the fact that Akupara has been so lean and agile and able to move so quickly has allowed us to grow and thrive when some other people are struggling to survive. And so now we've reached a point where David is very focused on external and biz dev and doing lots. It's very clever when it comes to interesting ways to make money, both for us and our developers. And I can focus on team growth, making sure that the team is supported, all the things that we went over earlier, and what a producer does.
So would you think of this as sort of like the producer of all producers, right? Producing the entire company rather than producing games themselves?
It's big picture thinking, still involved in projects. You and I are both still very in the weeds when it comes to projects, but it's mostly owned by our marketing team, and our producers and our engineers are the ones who are actively on the projects. So building out infrastructure so that we can continue to grow, launch more often, launch bigger, better titles with bigger budgets attached or bigger opportunity. We're able to take some bigger risks nowadays than we could before. Previously, you know, if we had one loss, it could have really tanked the company. We don't have that kind of issue anymore. We're able to reach beyond where we could before, and we've had a lot of repeatable success because we've been building the system together. A lot of the people have been here 10 or 5 years. Some people have been here the entire time with David. And we just know what works, and we know how to build on it, and we know how to like capitalize on the things that we do really well. And every day we're a little bit better than we were yesterday.
Okay, I definitely agree with that. Listen, humans are optimization sort of machines, right? What are some of the experiences or achievements that you think of as being kind of core to the preparation of becoming COO?
We've done so much over the past year and a half that it's sort of hard to compartmentalize everything that we've done. Really, I feel like we've removed a lot of questions. We have a lot of known quantities now, right? So we're able to just execute and focus on the execution and not focus on confusion, communication, or issues. There's a lot of like risk management and a lot of conflict resolutions like that early on. There's just a lot of confusion about ownership or priority or who needed to do what or what the status of things were. You had to waste a lot of time just trying to track down very basic info or vet that your plan was the correct plan or that people were working on the right thing at the right time. We've removed a lot of that kind of core foundational question through a whole bunch of different stuff, a bunch of system optimization and project management and process. And now our team is able to just focus on the fun, the interesting stuff that is specific to each project. Every project and team and dynamic and what makes sense for marketing project is completely different. But we don't have to answer the same questions over and over now. There's like 75% of this is just we know what to do and we're just going to do it and we're going to do a good job at it and we're going to get it right. And then now our team is freed up to just think about that creative solution stuff. Do really fun and quirky things for each project.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. What does the next stage of growth look like for Akupara, and how do you think that will translate to players?
That's a good question too. For Akupara,
listen, I try to make the questions good. Okay, listen, we're not in the business of platitudes, all right?
Everybody's head of marketing. So I don't think Akupara ever wants to grow to be huge or anything, right? I don't think we have aspirations of being Devolver Digital or anything like that. I think we want to be one of the best, most consistent, one of the most ethical people in kind of the space that we're in and just continue to find hits, kind of diamonds in the rough, kind of amplify voices that otherwise would go unheard, kind of support all these weird, quirky titles. I know Akupara is hungry for another big hit in the mix. Our 2026 calendar is absolutely stacked. I'm really excited about all the projects that we have on our plate right now. How that translates to players is that we are just continuing to find fun and interesting games and helping to bring that to players. There's a lot of really good stuff out there that I feel like goes unnoticed or gets passed over when it really is worthy of more esteem than it would otherwise have. And And then Akupara, another thing that Akupara is trying to do is we care a lot, kind of a values level for even bringing extra eyes to games that maybe didn't have enough the first go round. So we've been looking into like retroactive publishing. We did that with Rain World. Rain World was always an excellent game, but since we came on to Rain World, we released new DLC. Buddy, you are frozen on my screen. Are you still there?
Oh, I think I am still here. I was just listen. I'm listening so hard. Okay.
We came on to Rain World with Video Cult and helped build out DLC and new platform releases. We just went into Game Pass a couple weeks ago, which is really exciting. So we've been talking to other games that we know that were great games that we really love that maybe deserve a second chance, or maybe have lost publishers as publishers have gone under, or maybe there's just more opportunity that the game could take advantage of. So we've been doing a lot of things like that, getting a second pair of eyes on kind of these games that have already launched but really deserve more attention. So Akupara is both doing a lot of cool, big, new things, continuing to support projects that have a lot of love. We're still doing stuff on Rain World. We're working on Video Cult second game, Airframe Ultra. And then we're finding games that need another chance, or games that just need extra marketing support. And all that really means for players is it could get a chance to play more fun and interesting games that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise.
So one of the things that sets sort of us apart in the management level, you apart as sort of COO, right, is the ability to be going out and having meetings with developers, finding titles. This is true. Everyone in the management team has kind of brought games to Akupara that we've ended up signing, right? I have a couple of games. You have a couple of games. Let's say I'm an aspiring developer and I'm at GDC and I book a meeting. What are you looking for? What is the thing that makes you go, this is a game that I want to take back to AG and I want to talk seriously about signing, versus a game that just kind of says, you know what, I don't think this is right for us?
Going to sound a little bit trite, and I apologize, but I think games that you can tell are authentic and genuine, that they're making a game because it's what they're genuinely passionate about. They have a story they want to tell. They have a unique viewpoint. They want to do something that they as a developer really love and are passionate about. Not something that they think a publisher is going to love, not something that they think a player is going to love when they're saying, this is something that I as a developer are going to love. It comes from my viewpoint. It does something interesting and unique. I have an interesting story to tell, and that could be from a gameplay perspective or a narrative perspective or an art perspective, right? Those are the games that I get the most excited about, is when you go, oh, I see the passion that these developers are putting into this, and I understand where they're coming from, and I really want to be part of the story.
I totally understand that. I have also gotten about 1,000 pitches that are I think of these as market research pitches, right? Where it's like, we polled everyone in the Discord, and it's like, I don't care what everybody in the Discord says. I want to sign a game from a unique, interesting artist who has a point of view, right? Like, okay. What would you say excites you about the future of Akupara games?
I keep doing more of what we love with the people that we've built a great team with. And that extends to our internal team. They're people that we've been working with for multiple years at this point. We've built the process together. Everyone is very involved in decision making. We all kind of weigh in on what projects we're signing, what we're passionate about, what we want our focus to be. We all have a lot of like shared values and pillars and ethics, which I think really makes the work meaningful, is because we all have the same goals and can work on ways to achieve goals together. I did mention that our 2026 calendar is really, I think, possibly the strongest year that we've ever had for Akupara, and it will be our 10th anniversary. And we've just, I won't go in, I don't want to drop any specific names because we haven't announced launch dates yet, but there's a bunch of cool stuff that we've signed, some public, some not yet public, that is me as a gamer, I get really excited about. And I think we're going to keep being able to innovate kind of in publishing in the industry, and being trendsetters and building out brand recognition, and just getting to do fun, interesting marketing things and bring games to new platforms and bring them to consoles and languages and regions and all sorts of different people globally who have they're all different platforms or accessibility needs, and just keep telling interesting, creative, fun, unique stories in a time where I think art is especially essential.
That's a good way to frame it. Art is especially essential in these times. Okay. For you, what do you think are the big challenges that you see that the industry at large is facing?
Facing nothing but challenges right now, it feels like, unfortunately. I don't know how much this extends outside of people who aren't in the industry, but it's not a secret to anyone who works in games that it's an especially trying time just for stability in general. Right now, there's been tons of studio closures, tons of layoffs, and every single day it feels like just more and more people are losing the opportunity. Even people with tons of seniority and experience are struggling to find consistent work right now. And that's kind of on top of the challenges in the political climate, and we're US based, so we have a lot of our own challenges as well. And I think just finding the passion, finding the strength to continue to persevere despite everything going against you, and to be able to tell these authentic stories, especially for someone who's in kind of a niche, marginalized, we're very queer, we have a lot of POC stories. Even in normal circumstances, it's hard to tell those stories and resonate with people and actually find a platform. And it's even more challenging now, but I think it's also more important now than ever to continue to tell those stories when they're kind of getting pushed to the.
Okay. Final question. What's a game that you'd recommend to our audience that they probably would never have heard of before?
Audience is pretty on top of it, man. They know some weird, obscure stuff. But for me in particular, I play a lot of cyberpunk games. I play a lot of psychedelic, surreal games. One that I like a lot that I'm sure you've played because you also have a claymation, right? Did you play the Hylix games?
The Hylix games?
Hylix, yeah, the Hylix 1, Hylix 2. It's from a developer called Mason Lindroth. He's Swedish, solo developer. It's a turn-based game, like JRPG style, but the artwork is all claymation and rotoscoping. The animations are really, really cool. So, and he does his own music too, but it's all captured from his acting and claymation that he then rotoscopes over the claymation. It's really wicked cool. The games are kind of janky, but
that's what makes them charming. Okay. Yes, I do know this game. I was thinking for some reason in my brain, I was like Hylix with an X, and that just threw me way off. But once I went to the Steam page, yes, I am there is this weird I don't know, stop motion claymation underpinning to games. I think of it as what is it, Neverhood? Is it Neverhood is the one from the 90s that we all played? Yeah, this game from 1996, the point and click adventure. This thing was such a trip. Anyway, Hylix. Okay, that's a great answer. That brings us to the end of it. I do just want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else that you wanted to say to the fans? Okay, to all of the many fans of this podcast who don't even know that we're recording it because it's the very first episode. No is an okay answer. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Let me know how you liked this. I am planning to do many more of these with a number of different folks from the company to help you guys get an understanding of, I don't know, who we are, what we're doing here, and what the people behind Akupara really look like. So thank you so much for joining us. And listen, I'll see you in the next, what did I call the show? Indie Insider? Indie Insider, the next Indie Insider. Okay, goodbye.
Indie Insights.
Indie Insights. Oh, God, I can't even remember the name of my own show.